Before you watch this video, I got a simple question to ask you. Why do the same stories keep making us angry and afraid and divided? I want to welcome you to this website, this YouTube page, Faith in Public Life with Pastor Jim. Christians have always believed that there are powers at work in the world, shaping how people think, how people react, how people see reality. Paul wrote in Ephesians 6:12, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers and authorities and the powers of this dark world. Empires have always known something very, very important. If you want to control the people, you don't always need force. Sometimes you just shape what people fear and who they blame. Throughout history, systems of power have used the same old tools: fear and symbol and endless outrage and the search for a scapegoat and somebody to blame, somebody to hate, somebody to keep the crowd united in anger. But my friends, the Bible shows us this pattern again and again. And at the center of our faith, for us, stands Jesus, the innocent one who was turned into a scapegoat by political and religious power. And the cross exposes how these systems work. So this video you're about to watch explores how these systems of influence shape public reaction and perception. And as Christians, we watch things like this carefully, not with paranoia, but with discernment, because the gospel calls us to be something different. Not fear, not manipulation, not division, but truth. So my friends, watch this video with wisdom and remember, the kingdom of God does not control people through fear. It makes people free through truth.
I'm about to unpack something that is horrifying. What people call reality, it's all fake. This isn't going to be another YouTube video full of vague fluff. This is not a metaphor. This is reality being replaced layer by layer. There are 6 layers, and you've only seen the first one. Reality used to be grounded in direct experience. You lived through it. But now, reality is mediated. You don't experience events anymore. You experience coverage, pre-framed interpretations of ideas, avatars, personality, costumes, personas, and masks. A headline starts replacing understanding. A brand replaces identity. A political label replaces a human being. You're not living inside of reality. You're living inside of a symbolic layer. If symbols become dominant, truth becomes optional, because truth doesn't need to be accurate anymore. It just needs to be repeatable, emotionally charged, recognizable, and socially enforced. That is the simulation. Brands figured this out first, because we don't buy products, we buy a story about ourselves. So that's a word that you hear constantly, brand. And it comes from the Old Norse word brandr, and it means to burn. Specifically, it means to burn a permanent mark into livestock. So ownership is obvious and sorting animals out is easy. You are being branded by advertisers, political narratives. The system knows what you're going to react to, what you're going to defend, what you're going to buy, and who you're going to hate. So layer number 1 is mediated reality. This is why the world feels off. It feels theatrical and overacted, scripted, predictable. Because it is. Empires figured this out thousands of years ago. If you can control the symbols, you just need to control what people react to. People have to adopt the symbols. Now people are shaped by metrics and algorithms and visibility and approval signals. There's a very secret name for what all these things are, and they are called conditioning signals. Whatever gets rewarded gets repeated. Whatever gets ignored disappears. So people adopt. They simplify themselves, they exaggerate themselves, they flatten their entire personality into something that's shareable. So they become more extreme, more predictable, more performative. So people aren't asking, is this how I feel? They're asking, how will this be received by other people? And over time, something breaks. Because when your external performance doesn't match your internal experience, there is one universal response. We feel hollow. This is the death of authenticity. Which brings us to layer number 2, human conditioning. Once this is in place, training is what replaces learning. And they do this through algorithmic reinforcement, repeated narratives, emotional escalation, social punishment, visibility rewards. Information has to change shape because information creates understanding. So the system replaces information with content. And this brings us to layer 3, the collapse of information. So what's the difference between information and content? Information answers questions and content stimulates responses. Most of what fills your feed, it's not meant to be important. It is meant to occupy attention, trigger emotion, maintain your engagement, and prevent silence from entering your life. Because silence is where thinking happens. This is why everything feels urgent. You feel engaged. You feel aware. You feel more mature. But nothing ever resolves because resolution ends the engagement cycle. It's designed to make you feel like you're participating in it. Which brings us to layer number 4, fear and identity control. Humans evolved to survive in small groups where exclusion meant death. That wiring has never changed. Belonging used to come from family and tribe and shared work with other people. But now it comes from follower counts and group identities and digital approval. So conformity is enforced with social threat. You're quietly warned and you're shown that not reacting might be suspicious. Questioning the frame is dangerous. So people react publicly. Why? Fear of ostracism. The fear of being labeled, being seen as one of them. It's constant in the background of everything. And that is not accidental. And obviously, social media didn't invent fear, but it multiplied it by orders of magnitude. And here's why. Fear scales engagement better than any other emotion. It speeds reaction. It reduces nuance. It increases sharing, and it locks your memory in place. So the system learns. It tracks what spikes your heart rate, what makes you comment, what makes you argue, what makes you pissed off, and it feeds you more of that shit. Every post is a potential punishment that we're dealing with. Hate, panic, fear, and anger become advertising products. The longer you stay emotionally activated, the more valuable you become in real dollars. Fear has to be sustained. A stable identity does something dangerous. It resists manipulation, but the system is very clever. You are kept in a constant state of moral emergency. Every week there's a new crisis, a new outrage, some new villain that's prepackaged for you, a new law being passed, a new line that you're expected to know. It creates what looks like clarity, but it isn't. Something detonates emotionally, then it's immediately buried by the next thing. That's identity fragmentation. When people don't have time to form their values slowly, they accept a prepackaged moral frame. These are ready-made positions. approved language, approved emotions, approved enemies. Morality stops being something that we develop and it becomes something that we display. Signaling replaces moral reasoning. Virtue becomes a lapel pin. Ethics become performative. Belief becomes a freaking costume. And once morality is externalized like that, it's easy to control because it's a simulation. It's fake. It can be updated remotely. You can see it in how fast people switch positions. And it's not because they learned some new information, it's just because the frame got changed. And here's the most unsettling part, as if the other ones weren't. People start to feel relief when morality is handed to them because it removes responsibility. They don't have to think, they just have to align. And alignment feels safe when fear is everywhere. If identity and morality are programmable, division of human beings becomes super easy. And that all comes down to one huge manipulation tool. This is layer number 5, narrative warfare. So modern news is not here to report on reality. It's designed to completely and totally construct narrative frames. It decides who's a victim, who's a villain, who's righteous, and what questions are allowed. The facts are completely optional. So here's the mechanism. An event happens, immediately the story arrives fully formed, and you're told how to feel, who to blame, what it means, and which side you're on. And all this happens before you have time to think. Facts don't radicalize people. Narratives do that, because narratives come with heroes and enemies and moral certainty and urgency and full-blown permission to hate people. One detail gets amplified, another gets buried, context gets removed until complexity completely disappears. Nuance is always the first casualty here because nuance slows reaction time, and reaction is the product. This is how deliberate demonization works. You don't argue with the other side, you just dehumanize them. They're not human. This is where the left versus right illusion becomes very useful to them. It's audience segmentation. It's two simplified tribes, two emotional markets, two predictable reaction sets. Because while people are fighting each other, nothing upstream is ever examined. This is why wins are celebrated by all these politicians. Even when nothing changes, they're celebrating wins all the time. All these headlines and viral clips give us this placebo of things taking place, things are happening. And once people are emotionally invested in these narratives, they will defend those narratives even when the narratives hurt them, because abandoning the story means abandoning the identity. Once narratives are doing the work, politics don't need to govern anymore. The only thing that politics has to do is perform, which brings us to layer number 6. This is the theater of power. Modern politics is not a system for solving problems, and I think you would agree. It is a stage with roles and costumes and very predictable conflict arcs. Visibility, alignment, signaling, performative outrage, and symbolic gestures. This is why hearings that we see on TV all the time, they look dramatic, they accomplish jack shit. This is why speeches feel emotional and change nothing. This is why scandals cycle endlessly through the news with no consequence. Seriously, where are all the Epstein criminals going to jail? If politics were about results, it wouldn't need an audience. This is why the same behaviors repeat. That's why corruption has become background noise in politics. That's why people say, nothing surprises me anymore. That numbness, some people think it's apathy. It's not. It's conditioning. Right and wrong are replaced with team loyalty. So people aren't asking, is this right? They're asking, is this our side? This is where left versus right becomes useful again. Two sides, two very predictable emotional responses, endless conflict with no resolution. While all these people are arguing over symbols, the actual sources of instability remain completely untouched. Politics is a distraction machine. It's a constant stream of drama that absorbs attention and releases nothing of value. So let me say this super plainly in a way that maybe will make perfect sense. Most political content exists to keep you emotionally occupied, not materially informed. The goal is not progress. You know what the goal is? Engagement. Once politics is theater, events themselves become props. Most people think manipulation means lying. It does not. The most effective manipulation leaves the facts intact and controls how those facts are experienced. An event happens, and before anybody can orient to it, what shows up? The frame arrives immediately. So they tell you what the event means, why it matters, who the enemy is, what emotion you're supposed to feel, and which conclusions you are supposed to adopt. This is before you've even touched the real event itself. This is how current events are absolutely engineered. It is 100% not at the level of reality. It's at the level of interpretation. It's dumbed down because they think you are a moron, because complexity doesn't mobilize anybody. Simplicity does. And once framing is centralized, people will defend the interpretation like they witnessed the event themselves, because emotionally, they did. This creates a dangerous illusion. People feel like participants when they're actually spectators. They feel informed when they've only been pointed in a direction. They feel certain when they've been guided. And whoever controls the stories controls the responses. So once events are framed, once politics is theater and identity is unstable, story becomes the final weapon. Humans don't understand the world through facts alone. They understand it through mythic structure. That wiring is ancient. It predates language, and it's incredibly easy to hijack. This is where the global hero's journey comes in. Every major narrative that you're fed now follows the exact same template, I guarantee you. The hero becomes your side. The villain becomes the other side. The victim becomes the justification. Once those roles get assigned, logic is not required anymore, because archetypes bypass human reasoning. And once stories take over, morality becomes symbolic. It turns into symbols and slogans and flags and hashtags and profile frames on social media. Virtue's not something you do, it's something you deploy now. That's when morality starts to look like stickers, because stickers are visible. And what's the currency of this simulation that we are in right now? It's visibility. When morality becomes symbolic, it stops being moral. It's just a performance. This is why people are going to defend a story even when the story contradicts reality. Stories don't need to be true. They just need to make you feel like a good person. And there's only 4 things they need to give people: a role, a purpose, an enemy, and relief from uncertainty. And once you see this layer, everything below it snaps into focus. The media, the politics, the fear, the division, the identity weapon, they are not separate layers of manipulation. And story is the oldest control system that we have, a symbolic layer replacing reality, simulated people adapting to narratives and incentives. Nothing here requires conspiracy, just incentives. Seeing the simulation doesn't make you superior. It doesn't make you enlightened. It doesn't make you immune to everything. It gives you some orientation. You stop reacting on cue. You stop mistaking symbols for substance. And you don't need to convince anybody. You don't need to expose anything. You don't need to fight against the stage or rage against the machine. Once you see the machinery, the manipulation stops working the same way. The performance feels super obvious, and something weird happens. The world doesn't feel fake anymore. It feels like it's covered with a layer of something. And reality was always there, under the noise, under the fake symbols. This was unsettling. You may need to go back through it and take some notes. I spent a month writing this for you, and you can see the stage now. And maybe that's enough. This video will wake up enough people that we can shift back to reality a little bit. And I hope you like this one. Next week, we're releasing a video that's going to expose a lot more. So if you're subscribed, you're going to see it when it comes out. Thank you for spending some time with me. I appreciate your trusting me with your time. The link in the description down below is going to get you started on your journey toward training with me and working with me one-on-one if you're looking for that. And I'll see you in the next one. Love you. Take care.
The quiet pulse, the steady beat, the truth we feel in simple heat. Barefoot steps on hallowed ground.